Very, very still. Turkeys are mating in the spring. It's the season of the birds and the bees. Love's in the air for them too. And the toms, the guys, will display themselves strutting around, showing how beautiful they are to the hens. And then the hens choose a mate. And as a hunter, you then try to mimic the sounds of the hens. And you have a little squeaky toy, and you make your little calls so that you're hoping that the tom will come into you, come towards you. You may think this is a bit cruel. After all, the tom turkey is just looking for a little lovin', and what's waiting for him is someone who's looking for some supper, right? But if we think through, those of us who are omnivores, if we think through our own turkey eating, it's hard to argue that this is any more cruel than a bunch of butterballs being loaded onto a truck and taken to the processing plant so that we can have our turkey from the grocery store. Okay, the only difference is that when you're hunting, you don't outsource the dirty work, you do it yourself. Well, the hunt came early. We were to our site before 6 a.m., before the woods and the turkeys woke up for the day. The stars were clear and very bright. It was beautiful. Jupiter was in the eastern sky, and then it faded as the sunlight started to shine. Carl set up his decoys, and I got into the turkey blind, which is a little camouflage tent that you sit in, and then we waited and listened. And then the woods started to come to life. And I'd never experienced this, and it was incredible. First, I just heard some songbirds I was familiar with. The robins and the cardinals started chirping and getting ready for the day. And then I heard some geese honking off in the distance. And the woodpeckers started making their racket and doing their work. And then off a couple hundred yards in front of us, there was a raccoon or something out in the field eating, and some coyotes came out. 2 coyotes came out and chased it into the bushes. It was a circle of life happening right before our eyes, right there. And then some great horned owls, there must have been about a dozen of them or so around us, started hooting. And they were really excited. Hoo, 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 hoo. And they started almost barking like dogs at one another, just saying, we're going to sleep already. Everybody relax now. And then we heard it. What? And then another one. Over there. That's my best turkey, folks. I've been practicing for a long time. But we heard these turkeys, and then we got really excited. We started calling, waiting, listening, calling again, waiting, listening. It was so exciting. And nothing happened. So for 2 hours we sat there doing that, and then we finally got impatient enough that we got out of our blind and started walking around, hoping to walk up on some turkeys. And we walked, and we stopped and called and listened, walked, stopped, called, listened. Did that for about an hour, and then all of a sudden we heard another one over there. And so we walked after it. And then we heard a gobble again, but it was further away. And we walked again, and the gobble was still further away. And we came to the end of the property that we could hunt on, and there was this ravine, and the gobbler was down there mocking us. Can't get me, can't get me. So we went back to the blind to pack up, done for the day. And as we got back to the blind, we were on a ridge and right on the border of another neighbor's property. And over the border, there was this flock of 10, a dozen hens there with 2 toms in full display, strutting around, saying, "Aren't I sexy? Look at me." And it was a beautiful sight. And we ran into our blind, and Carl started calling like 2 young turkeys that are fighting, because apparently turkeys will gather for a fight just like humans will gather for a fight. But nothing happened. So sex won out over violence for us that morning, and no turkeys came by. And we packed up, outfoxed by these turkeys. That morning was a reminder to me that there's so much going on in our world beyond humanity. And it's delightfully complex, and it's very, very good. We don't have as much control as we might think. The songbirds and woodpeckers and raccoons and coyotes and owls were all doing just fine, thank you very much, living their lives, giving and taking in the ecology of that place. And the turkeys were much smarter than me on that day. Who was I to think that I was going to walk in there and snag my supper like I was going to Hardee's ordering a turkey club? It will take much more time and skill for me to put that food on my plate. I don't begrudge this time, and I'm not frustrated by it either. Participation in anything worthy takes time, and for me, deeper participation in creation is deeper participation in the life of God. So that's time well spent. I could have experienced all of this by simply being in those woods and observing. But the sense of awe and love for creation and God was heightened for me because I was there for food. Because I was hoping to take one or a few meals from what the land was providing me rather than what I could purchase at the grocery store. Because I was seeking to receive myself what God was providing rather than receiving God's provisions through someone else. Because of these things, I was invited to turn from being a consumer of creation to being a participant in it. And I noticed so much more. I noticed the connections, the webs of relationships. The soil provides the nutrients for the grass. The grass provides the nutrients and seeds for the birds. The birds nest in the oak trees, which provide the acorns as the primary source of food for the turkeys that I was hoping might be supper for me and my family. You see, I wasn't separate from this web of relationships. I was in the midst of it. And I realized that everything depends on the same elements: the soil, the water, the air, the community, one another, and the animating power of God that pulls us all towards harmony. The whole creation, which includes us, is groaning in labor pains, waiting for redemption, renewal, restoration. And Easter reminds us that this redemption is always unfolding, and we are invited in. There are places where we are called to participate in creation more than we do. Perhaps food is your entry point, like it is for me. Or maybe hiking is, or a bird feeder is, or a flower garden is. Whatever your entry point, this participation is deeper participation in the life of God. And it deepens this participation will deepen our love and appreciation for God. And the wonder will lead us to care for creation. And then we will see the glimpses of redemption and God's salvation that turns groaning into rejoicing. May it be so. Thanks be to God. Amen. Please rise as you are able and sing "For the Beauty of the Earth," which is number 56.